This is What Next with the Torisk-Team. Please be sure to continue liking those videos. If you want to keep up with the latest episodes, please subscribe or follow us on your favorite podcast platforms. And we are live. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining tonight. We're going to be talking about the proactive versus reactive mindset. So they say that the proactive mindset involves being aware of what you want out of life and knowing the kinds of behaviors that are important to get you there. That it promotes the ability to recognize the things that you can control and the things that you can't control. And we covered that on all that on the circle of control, circle of influence. So check that show out if you want to see more about that. But I will tell you that sometimes you are just naturally one way or the other. Some people are born naturally one way or the other, but we're going to identify which way you are, if you're proactive or reactive naturally. And we're going to cover how to change into a proactive mindset if you are the latter. Now, I didn't know that I subconsciously, the way I was raised, I was obviously a reactive person. I was raised in a very toxic environment. And we covered this in episode 4 about my childhood and how I switched automatically. And it was a very traumatic experience, but it wasn't traumatic in a bad way. It ended up being traumatic in a very positive way. But my whole mindset switched, and that made me switch. My mind went from reactive to proactive automatically. Before I knew any of this stuff, before I knew, I was just basically a homeless kid living in a efficiency back then. I wasn't homeless. I was in an efficiency on my own 2 feet, but it was very tight days. And so I didn't have any college education, have any education. And what I've gotten over the years is what I've invested in myself, and I call it my knowledge education. It's been a lot of certificates, a lot of classes, seminars, Tony Robbins events, a mentorship. I've spent a lot of money on counseling from other professionals of who are where I want to be. And so I learned all this in reading these books right here. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People covers most of this stuff tonight. And actually it's rule number 1 in that book by Covey. And then Confessions of a Serial Salesman. It's a great book. Steve Nudelberg covers a lot of this stuff in it, but very, very entertaining. So there's a lot of science behind what I'm going to say, but I'm telling it to you my way because this is what happened to me. This is what got me to the next level without even knowing that it was, this stuff. It's really good when you know about it now. So when you see you have low self-esteem, you actually protect it. When you're afraid of people telling you, I told you so. So you actually don't take any risk. You have the proclivity to just play it safe and just be told what to do and then do it the way that you're told, and that's it. And that's a very reactive nature, and you can get into the habit of that very easily. But when you don't look to others for your happiness or approval, and it's just in you and it's innate, you start to say, how big can I fail? Let's see how big can I fail? Because when you don't fail and you succeed, you take these baby steps. And when you fail, you actually learn from it, and it hurts, but you learn from it. I fail so often that I actually fail up. And what I mean by that is even at my biggest failure, which was 2009, I lost a company, lost a house, I lost a fiance, I lost everything in my life except for my kids. And they're stuck with me really. But I had zero, there's no income. I lost everything with the housing market bubble burst because of the industry that I was in with the construction. And you could actually see the indentured, body outline where I laid because I hit the ground so hard. But I was actually mountain peaks higher from where I started back in 1991, my journey into the business. Into 2006 or 2009, I think it was when I failed. That whole thing failed. It was so much still higher than I had been previously in my life. So I didn't consider it a failure. I considered it a new beginning. Let's go, get up. All right, Jay ain't right. It didn't hurt. And so let's see where you are with your mindset. Okay, so being reactive means that you don't have to take risk, and means that you have to put forth less effort. It means you don't have to deal with things like the responsibility of failure. Unfortunately, you won't be able to deal with the responsibility of success either. And so that's a pretty big negative trade-off there. While being proactive, that leads to feeling of accomplishment, higher self-worth, and a general happier existence, a happier outlook, a healthier outlook. So one way to know that you've chosen a proactive mind is really if you look at the way you'd move. I like to compare that movement to a shark. Sharks don't ever stop moving. They're constantly moving. And that's how I find is a natural occurrence for me. Have you ever heard of whistling while you work? Well, this is called hustling while you wait. It's one of the best lines in that book by Covey. It's one of my favorite lines to say ever. It's a hustle while you wait mentality. When I was a kid, I got my first promotion just from that, but I didn't know what it was at the time. But all the installers in the morning where I met, they used to meet and jabberjaw right before the managers came out with our routes. So they were inside getting assignments together, having their little meetings. Bay doors were all open. We're all outside in the trucks, and they're all blah, 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 jack and jaw. But I used to go in and sweep the floors. Just what I did. I didn't like talking. I didn't like BSing. I didn't care about who drank more last night, who beat who up, who was better at their job than the other. I went and swept the floors. It's just something I did. And about 2 months into that job, there was an MDU route that came open. And those generally went to the superior or the senior installers because they had already spent their time, paid their dues in the attics and the crawl spaces. And so they offered it to me though. They jumped over a couple of guys and they offered it to me. And I think they were really surprised when I asked if I could keep my original route and add this to it, because I said, why would you do that? And I said, because I see that the other MD route guys, they're always off around 2 o'clock and they all go ride jet skis. That's what they do. But I am a grinder. I don't want to go ride jet skis at 2 o'clock. I think I can do that job and the job I'm doing. And about 2 weeks adjustment period went by where I was showing up really late and getting calls and complaints, but they let me ride through it and I conquered it and I killed it. And from there on, for the next year, I did 2 routes where everyone else at my company did 1. And from there, I asked, after a while, I got kind of bored of that and wanted to move up. I wanted a construction, MDU construction, they call it, different type of work. And they passed me over a few times, but I just kept doing what I do. I just kept sweeping the floors in the morning, keeping to myself, doing my job. And while they wouldn't let me have it at first because, quite frankly, they didn't want to lose me, I had 2 routes, they gave it to me. And it came with a different salary, a different raise. And when I got my first check, there was a $500 bonus in that check. And they'd made me a supervisor a little bit, so I kind of went on salary. And with that bonus, I was just shocked. And I called and talked to the owner, and I asked, where did this bonus come from? And he said it was for all the years, 2 years that I was there sweeping the floor. It was back pay. And I was I didn't know what he was talking about. And he said, nobody asked you to do it. You did it through all of your pay titles, your job titles and your pay grades. And you can't do it anymore because you're going to be in with us handing out the work in the morning. And I just wanted to show you that I appreciated it. So that motion of just going in there and sweeping the floor, doing something that nobody asked me to do, set me apart from 95% of everybody else out in that parking lot. Some guys were smarter than me. Some guys were more technical than me. Hell, I wasn't even near the most liked guy, but nobody outworks Jeremy. Tell you that now. I'm the first in and I'm the last to leave. That's the mentality I've always had. And I didn't realize it was the proactive mind. So let me ask you, first off, let's decide, do you have a job or do you have a trade? And if you don't know, then you need to stop what you're doing and examine where you're going with your life. We're going to get into beginning with the mind beginning with the end in mind a little bit. Different episode, but we'll cover that there. But you need to figure out what you're doing. And if you don't know, then you got to to do what Tony Robbins says, and that's make your move. Okay, make your move. Figure out what you want, and I'll help you do that in another episode. But here are some things that can get you started on your proactive mindset. So, how about learning about your profession on your own time, after hours? Some call it continuous learning. You can get up early in the morning and plan your day and organize your thoughts before anyone else gets up. You can exercise regularly, just 20 minutes. You don't need any weights. You don't need a gym. And you should probably do that every single day of your life. It's very healthy for you. You can count your blessings. It's called a gratitude list. I do it every night. I've got a book. It's coming. Sometimes I do it in my mind. Sometimes I do it in a book on my OneNote. But I got this new daily planner coming that's got a whole dedicated spot at nighttime for gratitude list. So I'm looking forward to that. You can read every single day. Don't care what it is, as long as it's not social media. That doesn't count. And you can be proactive in your communication about your career path with your bosses by asking them what you could do to improve your chances for promotion. So here are some knee-jerk responses that you should listen for to find out and identify which camp you're in. So do you say this or that? Do you say, there's nothing I can do? Or do you say, let's look at our alternatives? That's just the way I am. Or I can choose a different approach. He makes me so mad. And for me, it's she makes me so mad. They make me so mad. And I'm not 100% on any of these, but you should be to the place where you can control your own feelings. The only people, like Gandhi said, nobody can hurt your feelings. You have to give them permission. This is one of my favorite ones. I have to do that. This took me a while to get, but I will choose the appropriate response. And that's a long-winded way. Read chapter 1, page 65 to 78 or so of 7 Habits. That gets into, I have to do that versus I'll choose an appropriate response. It's one of my favorite ways to think about doing things. I can't. This is very close to that. I can't becomes I get to, right? I must becomes I get to. I can't becomes I choose. So it's a different way of looking at something. I don't want to do something. I have to do it. Instead, I get to do it. Even though it's going to suck, you're going to learn something from it. You're supposed to be doing it for a reason. And then if only my house was paid for. We'll change that. I will. This house will be paid for. Not if only. It's going to happen. So none of these things, to wrap this up, can be done, though, for the sole purpose of advancement, to get to the next level or to get somebody's attention. If you do these for attention, it won't work. It needs to be organic. It needs to be sincere. It has to be done only because you prefer moving to sitting and putting yourself out there and risk stumbling, perhaps failing, most likely failing a lot. I suggest failing often, early and often, but you'll never learn anything from sitting. I appreciate every viewer, and I hope this helped you. I hope it was semi-entertaining, and I look forward to our next episode. Thank you very much from the Torisk-Team.